Hello and welcome back. It's Andrew Eborn here with another edition of Lives on Lockdown, and I'm delighted to go straight to line 13. And I think we've got Stacey. Hello, Stacey.
Hello, how's everybody?
Amazing. How are you?
I'm all right. Trying not to go crazy.
I think I was way past that years and years and years ago. Nothing to do with lockdown, but it's all good. I'm delighted you're joining us. Whereabouts are you?
Thank you. I'm in Hampshire, about halfway between London and Portsmouth.
Okay. Which part of Hampshire? I love Hampshire.
Liphook.
Oh, very good. Well, I went to school in a place called Long Sutton, which is on that sort of all the way down there, a place called Lord Wandsworth College, which is fantastic. So shout out to them. Love it down there. Beautiful part of the world, isn't it?
It's stunning. It's Jane Eyre country.
And you've got Petersfield just around the corner
Sorry,
as well.
Jane Austen. Duh. Yeah, Petersfield is 7 miles.
That's okay. That's good. No, we love that sort of stuff. It's wonderful. And you are in your kitchen, and you've got an apron on as well.
I do. Apron from the Victory Cafe, which used to be in New York City. It was a fireman's pub, and I waitressed there while I was still a lawyer working at a record company, and I knew that I was going to get fired for either insubordination or I was going to quit on the spot because my boss was so mean.
Oh, no.
So I got a job waitressing just so I would have cash in hand if I suddenly was not a lawyer tomorrow.
Oh, fantastic. And this was last week, was it?
Yeah, 30 years ago.
No, doesn't time fly when you're having fun?
Absolutely. And the funny thing is, it's not why I got fired in the end.
What was the reason you got fired in the end?
I had a child, and then when I came back from maternity leave, I had been appointed a judge by the city of New York, and they had promised I could be a judge part-time and a lawyer for the record company part-time. And when I came back from maternity leave, they changed the deal. They said, no, either you stay on full-time here or you have to go. So I went and I became a judge.
Well, I'll tell you what you needed. You needed a good lawyer. That's what you needed.
Didn't know any.
So tell us a bit more about your background, because obviously your accent is not a typical lip hook accent, is it?
No, I'm from New York City, where we talk about coffee with our hands. So I grew up in Queens, went to high school in the Bronx, went to law school in Manhattan, took a couple of years out at Syracuse University, and then when I graduated law school, that's when I moved to England the first time. So I did an internship here when I was in law school. Well, started coming here when I was a junior in college, which is uni, but moved here permanently 4 times now.
Oh, fantastic. And you're involved with the media side. So your area of specialization, you do media, you look after some fantastic, very famous musicians, as well as that. So yeah. Tell us a bit about that.
So I've been a music lawyer for my entire career, which is just over 30 years. And I've been really lucky to work with some very, very good firms. And I'm not saying that I got the clients, but the firms have represented David Bowie, Bruce Springsteen, U2, Rolling Stones, Tina Turner, Cher. I mean, I did Pink's management agreement for her manager. I did Elvis Costello's agreement to appear on The Simpsons. I did Mark Knopfler's agreement when they did his signature guitar line at Martin Guitars. I've just been really lucky. I can't take the credit for it. I was in the right place at the right time. Credit goes to the partners of the firms. And then even clients that I've had on my own where it's just me as the lawyer, it's always been, somebody saying, I have a client who needs some help, from the publisher or the label. And then I'll step in and I'll help. And, that relationship will last years.
And that's the key about being a professional. People always ask, we have similar sort of career paths, and it was only fairly recently we sort of collided, and we look at that sort of stuff. People always say, look, what is the secret about being a good lawyer? And it's the secret about being a good, any professional, or actually any job at all, isn't it? It's all about relationships, and it's all about talking to people and understanding where they're coming from.
But absolutely right. If you don't know why they want what they want, you'll never know how to convince them to give it to you, or you'll never convince your client they don't need it. So for instance, one of the things I used to do at a British firm that I worked with in the city was I would give them lectures on how to negotiate with New Yorkers, East Coast lawyers, how to negotiate with West Coast lawyers. And I would also explain to them from the inside, because I worked at a label and a publisher and a management company, I knew every bit of the industry. So I would explain, I know you think it makes you a good lawyer to get that, to make that change, but I'm telling you, you hurt your client. And this particular issue was approval on all sync. You only need approval for your artist or songwriter if it's hygiene, pharmaceutical, alcohol, tobacco, something controversial. But if it's just pure movies or video games or whatever, you really don't. And in fact, you do them a disservice because they'll chuck your title away and they'll give it to an artist or a songwriter who they don't need approval for, and they could approve right then and there. Because once you need approval, it takes up to 2 weeks by the time it goes down the chain, from the label asking the manager asking the artist thinking about it. You could lose the deal that way. You're not maximizing income, which sync is really lucrative right now.
Well, it's huge, and that's the license for those who don't understand the jargon. That's the synchronization license, or when you need permission to put somebody else's music together with a film or something like that.
That's right. So it's advertising, film, television, video games. Yeah, it's putting music to pictures, just like you said.
Yeah, and one of the wonderful things that you tantalizingly said, that you lecture other lawyers about how to negotiate with East Coast and West Coast lawyers in America. Give us your top tips, Stacey. What would they be?
Top tips for New York lawyers is go in, tell them, this is what I want. I know you'll give me these. We're going to argue over these. Let's just meet in the middle and end it right now. Save our clients money. Save them dollars per hour. They never do, but it takes a week less because they know where they're going to end up, so they don't bullshit around. And New York lawyers, it's all about time with them. California lawyers, LA lawyers, you got to schmooze. You got to talk. You got to ask how the family is. You have to ask what else they're working on. And then you have to say, do you know, it would really help me out if. So it's all about getting favors.
Oh, fantastic. There you go. That is saving people millions. I love it.
I know.
The music commission. Of course, they're all watching now. So, when that Stacey turns up, we're going to do it the other way around. The New Yorkers will do what the LA people do, and the LA people do what the New Yorkers. What I loved growing up when I was a baby lawyer was, and it encapsulated litigation for me. It was a picture, famous punch cartoon, which you remember, where they have a cow in the middle, and they have the plaintiff pulling the horns of the cow, representing this is the fight, this is litigation. They have the defendant pulling its tail, representing litigation, and the lawyer was in the middle milking the cow. And that for me epitomizes what it was like to be a lawyer. So,
but do you know what's horrible about being a lawyer? Is one, that reputation, and two, questioning billable hours. So when I have a client who pays by the hour, I sit there and I document every minute. And then the invoice shows lawyer minutes, which is a 15-minute increment, because every time you do something for a client, you have to remember what came last, you have to think about it, and then you have to document it. And for a 1-minute phone call, that takes 15 minutes. So that's why so I show what it would be in lawyer minutes, lawyer hours. I show exact minutes, exact hours, and I bill them for the exact. And they're still not happy. So I moved over to billing flat fee all up front. And people are happier. They know what they're getting into. They know it doesn't matter how many times they call. It's interesting. It's like a different business, but it works for me and for my clients.
Oh, no, you're absolutely right. And a similar sort of way, what I've done with many clients for many years is actually say, look, there are different ways that you can do this. We can work on a retainer, we can work on hours, or we can work on percentages. And actually, the majority of the people love it when we say you've got skin in the game, if you like. What happens is you're there negotiating a deal for your client. When your client makes millions, you share in that success. And actually, most clients prefer that, don't they?
No, mine don't. And I think it's just the luck of the draw, because they don't want to share a percent. They don't want to see it go above what they would have paid otherwise. So then they feel cheated and they never come back after that. And I don't like that. Like you say, it's about my relationship with them as well. It's about them enjoying their career, not feeling like they got shafted. What I do with some clients is the ones that really need the help but can't pay until they have the money and the deal is done. I say, pay me what you can, when you can, but I get a copy of all your statements. I will know when you're getting paid, and I will know if you don't contact me and say, hey, I owe you money here. Can I give you this much? And I don't tell them how much. And the really successful relationships have been going on for the better part of 20 years that way.
Yeah.
The ones who didn't pony up and didn't contact me, and I've had to say, hey, did you get paid from X? And they go, yeah. And I go, well, it's time to pay me now. And they go, well, what's the last thing you did for me? I got you the deal that got you the X.
Yeah.
And that's the end of that. And then
no, I think you're right. Relationships are always two-way things. And I think that's what happened. That's why I say you need that sort of flexibility in the same way as you'll find, because a lot of my role is not just saying being the lawyer or whatever, but also I'm brokering rights. So I'm finding deals for them, which is much a sort of manager agent's role. And basically what we do is we help people release, if you like, the underlying value of rights which they're sort of sitting on. So it straddles both camps of being a lawyer, being a manager, also being an agent, being a broker. So all of those sort of things. But the key, as you say, about relationships, is about being flexible in terms of how you build people. And I always say that a fee is a fair energy exchange. So it doesn't necessarily have to be money. You like that, don't you? You'll be using that, Stacey.
I love that.
The usual royalty, absolutely. So a fee is a fair energy exchange. And if we basically, we might just enjoy being together and doing stuff, you know, to make things happen. That's a fair energy exchange. And so always be flexible, have a long-term view. Because so many people say, oh, it's going to charge an absolute fortune. They disappear, they get grumpy. Don't do that. Work out what's fair for everybody. Will make things happen. Talking about making things happen, I know, little birdie told me that not only are you a phenomenally successful lawyer with that wonderful thing, sacked 30 years ago, but not really, but you also got that penny, and that has been an inspiration for you. You are also a creative yourself, and you have written several books, at least 2, with recipes, and you come under the glorious title. Tell me about that. I won't even spoil the glorious title. That'll be your punchline. Go for it. What is it?
Thank you. So my first adult cookbook is called The Gefilte Fish Out of Water.
Gefilte Fish Out of Water? I love that line.
I'm a Jewish New Yorker, and I was living in London for 10 years before I could find a synagogue this last time. And it was my boys were nearing Hebrew school age, so they could be bar mitzvahed, so they had to learn Hebrew and the Torah. I could not find the synagogue near me for love nor money. And when eventually someone took me to one in Surrey, and then they told me about one closer to where I live in Guildford, even on the day that we were supposed to go to the first services for Shabbos, we show up, we park the car, I can't find it. Luckily, there's this beautiful, gorgeous, stately woman with a fur coat walking. I knew she was the one to ask. And I said, excuse me, please, where's the synagogue? And she said, darling, come with me. And it's behind a gate, behind a fence, no signs, you can't see it, you don't know it's there. And that's Guildford in a nutshell, Guildford and Jews in a nutshell. But having said that, to this day, my rabbi from that synagogue is still one of my best friends. And he is phenomenal. He's the Jewish chaplain for the Olympics. He's the Jewish chaplain for the FA. He's the Jewish chaplain at Surrey University. He has been so instrumental in the development of my growth as a human being and my children's. Alex Goldberg, Rabbi, and I've just produced a podcast for him and the Reverend Richard Hayes from Yateley. They are phenomenal. When they start talking about what's similar and what's different, oh my God, I just sit back and listen and interject every once in a while. It's brilliant. I love it.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we will get them on the show. You have to bring them with you next time.
I'd love that. Thank you.
Oh, fantastic.
Good.
Now you threatened to make something from your glorious book. What are you going to make for us?
So the next Jewish holiday coming up is Shavuot, and it's where we read the book of Ruth and where we eat dairy. It's where we first got the Torah on Mount Sinai, and we commemorate the commitment to God, and so it's where we stopped mixing milk and meat. So you eat dairy first, and then you eat meat. So lots of dairy dishes. So I thought, this being England, bread pudding.
Oh, bread pudding. I love bread pudding.
Good. Well, this is challah bread pudding. You know that braided brioche bread that we eat?
Oh, so I did. Absolutely. I love it.
So for the cookbook, I made one for the Rosh Hashanah, which is round instead of braided, and I froze it. So I now have it here that I'm going to make bread pudding out of. I'm going to try and put you down so you can see what I'm doing.
I'll tell you what, so many people have tried to put me down, Stacey.
Like the dog that you are.
Absolutely. Right. Oh, that looks delicious. Here's one I prepared earlier. That's unfair.
Well,
That's
so
sensational.
I've already sliced it.
Right.
You take a huge big tub of custard. You take 2 ounces of frangelica liqueur, and you mix them together. And then you butter your baking dish.
And is the butter salted or unsalted, the butter?
I like salted butter because this recipe calls for salted. But the other thing is I'm dairy intolerant. So I use goat's butter, which is always salted. So I cut back on the amount of salt I add for the recipes. But okay. I like salt, I have to say. When I do normal cooking, it would have been unsalted, so I can control it. Do you like the pottery as well?
Oh, I love that. I was going to say, did you make that yourself?
I did, yeah.
And where did you learn how to do that?
At Milland Pottery in West Sussex. I started taking the kids there when we lived down the road, and then they stopped after about a year. This was back in 2001. And so I kept going, and that's, I make all my own pottery now. So what I'm doing is I put a layer of custard in the bottom. I'm adding the bread in a single layer, as much as I could fit in. Give it a little extra sprinkle of salt, a little bit more custard. Little bit of chocolate chips.
Oh, chocolate chips are always popular.
It's got to be chocolate chips for me. Although, you know, I was making a gift for someone with hot cross buns, so raisins instead of chocolate chips.
I'm used to bread and butter pudding with raisins.
I miss the butter in this, but I have to say it's just too fattening.
Okay.
Yeah. And also, that's the whole point of this cookbook. It's a combination of US and UK. So we, you know, bread pudding doesn't really exist for us. So I could leave out the butter because that's the US part. That's the New Yorker in me, putting chocolate instead of butter.
And talk to me about the custard you make. Run that through me again. What are the ingredients for the custard?
Well, custard is eggs and sugar and a little bit of milk, but I used carton. One of the whole things about this feast is that I want to be with my guests. I don't want to spend my whole time in the kitchen. So if I'm making this up earlier and I know I have to spend a lot of time on the rest of the meal, just buy it in a carton. And because I'm lactose intolerant, there's no way I could have made it on my own.
And that's the great thing about it, Stacey, as well, isn't it? You can turn around and say, look, if you're very busy, you can buy some things already made. You don't have to do absolutely everything yourself, but you bring them all together to make this fusion.
That's right. My 3 other cookbooks are for children aged 3 to 6, and I teach them how to make custard. Obviously, they have a responsible adult with them, because it's a good fundamental that you need to know. But once you know, you don't have to do it every time. Make it adaptable to your lifestyle. So you're coming back up to me now.
Hello.
Hello. Whoops. Hello. So this, you're going to put some cling film over it. You're going to put something on top to weigh it down. And I usually put a teapot on top because it's really.
I wonder who made that teapot.
I did, but it's really heavy. It's so chunky and heavy. So that's what I put on top. And I leave that for half an hour while the oven warms up. And then you bake it. And it only takes 15 minutes because custard's already cooked.
Oh, that's good. Now talk to me about the temperature of the oven and whether you're using fan or non-fan.
You can use either. So and it depends on your oven. So it should be 350 Fahrenheit. My oven, I need to put it at 200 Celsius because anything below 200, it doesn't cook. It takes hours. So do what's right for yours. And I did prepare some earlier. No joke.
Right too, in a Blue Peter way.
Yeah. So let me hold this up for you. Can you see that?
Oh, I can not only see it, I can smell it. This is glorious.
It's really good. I have this amazing cocoa powder that it's so much stronger than anybody else's and so much finer. It's beautiful. So I sprinkled that on top as well.
And where did you get that cocoa powder from?
I got it online. It's Navitas Organics, and they're based in San Francisco. And they have all the superfoods. So I get everything from there. I get all my powders, all my cocoa nibs, any kind of matcha, just anything that, and then they do superfood blends as well. So it makes being healthy really easy. So I do that after I binge drink. I need it the next day.
Oh, it's delicious. Well, one of the things I like about this series, love about this series, is we get lots of nutritionists on as well, and talking about the power of cocoa or cacao and the medicinal implications as a result of having it, which is lovely. It's going to be a blessing to everybody. Eating chocolate's good for you, isn't it?
Absolutely. Dark chocolate. When I became diabetic, so all my life I was hypoglycemic, and then during pregnancy, I started have gestation diabetes. And then when the kids were older, it just flipped completely to type 2 diabetes. And you go to diabetes school and they teach you how to live and eat. And one of the things they said is 1 square of dark chocolate a day is recommended because you need iron. It's got vitamins that you need. Look at me saying vitamins. Vitamins. It's a problem keeping to 1 square a day, but you should have at least 1 square a day. Who doesn't love that? And then in London's Borough Market, they sell chocolate wine, fruit and chocolate. That's 2 a day.
It is absolutely glorious. Well, we had another chef from a 5-star hotel on who'd just come back from Peru, and he used to work for Rothschild. You know, they had their own chocolate line that they did, and he was the chocolatier and basically had to decide on the different things, the chocolates, and he was talking so passionately about it. I love enthusiasm is so infectious, isn't it?
It's amazing. It's good stuff. And because I don't have dairy, I only eat dark chocolate without milk in it. I have come to love it. The darker, the bitter, the better. Oh,
the bitter, the better. I know people like that. It's got to be bitter.
Not people.
Glorious.
So I wish I could send you some to taste because my kitchen smells glorious.
What do you mean? You wish you could? I'm sure we could.
Okay, good.
I'll send somebody round to collect something.
Perfect.
Suitably distanced. You can leave it out and they'll put a slice.
Good. That's done. Consider
Wonderful.
it done.
Thank you. So what do we call this? What do we call this glorious creation?
Challah bread pudding.
Brilliant. And the recipe is available in your book. So
yes,
you can do it very easy. Hold it up. 3. Oh, fantastic. There we go. And I love that title. I love that title. Oh, it looks even better in real person.
Can I tell you, the first law firm I worked with here, it was 3 partners, 1 secretary, and me. And the senior partner, who to this day is still my mentor, he's Mark Stevens, CBE, so proud of him. He came into my office one day and he said, "Do you know what? I've hired another Jewish lawyer. You're going to love her." And he used to take me to the Jewish kitchen in Whitechapel because that's where our office was. And we would go in and we would sit there and we'd have all the foods that I would name they would have. And they were different. Every single one was nothing like my mother's or my grandmother's or my aunt's. Nothing. And that's one of the things I love about the having written the cookbook, is remembering the stories of how I got the recipe and which family member and which holiday. And my family has a really good sense of humor, so they won't mind me taking the mickey out of them.
Glorious. Well, listen, It's been an absolute joy. We've got lots more in the cookbook. So next time we see you, give us a little taste. What might we have on the next episode?
How would you like s'mores cheesecake?
S'mores cheesecake sounds divine. So if people want to find out the recipe, we'll put some online. They can get hold of the book as well. S'mores cheesecake. Do you want to give us the headlines, the ingredients people might need if they want to play along?
Yeah, so it's cream cheese, butter, digestive biscuits, marshmallows, chocolate. It's beautiful. It's my cousin Heidi's recipe, and it's such a crowd pleaser.
Fantastic. Well, we like pleasing the crowds, although they have to be socially distanced at this stage. So
Yeah.
well,
Now,
a
who's going
small
to eat
but
all this
deeply
food?
formed crowd, which we could share. Stacey, it's an absolute joy to see you.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure, and I just enjoy spending the time with you. If anybody watches, that's a bonus.
Oh, there you go. It'll be me. I don't want to share this recipe. It's obviously far too good, so I'll keep this quiet. Thanks a lot, Stacey. I'll see you next time. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. There you go. Wasn't that good? So another segment of the Lives on Lockdown. Do join me next time for more tasty morsels. In the meantime, be good, be safe, and stay alert.